Welcome back, everyone. Here we go again, starting a video after I've already finished everything. So, I'm pretty sure I did this, but I can't seem to find the video clip. Alright. This is my diesel heater. I've done a video before on putting it together and what was involved in the process. It works really well, or at least it had been working very well. But I had a problem. I went to hook it up to the tent and it was telling me that there wasn't a signal from the device to the control head. So I needed to figure out what was going on. So what I did was disconnected a few things and got my hands on some new wiring. Basically, the deal behind this is you need to figure out where the electrical connection got lost. So I had created this 4-flat interface, giving me the ability to have a watertight or semi-watertight connection on the outside of the box. It also gave me the ability to lengthen my control harness and get it up into the tent. Well, what I found, when I popped this open, I put my meter on resistance and checked it between the pins on this plug and the corresponding pins on this plug. So I popped this open and you can check the pins individually. What I found out was that this white wire here was disconnected somewhere. When I checked the wire itself, it looked like it was in good condition, so all I could assume was the problem was right here where it goes into the plug. So, I ordered some new parts, and we will continue with the next video clip, which is now probably about, several weeks ago. But let me show you what I did with this and the process that I went through to get it hooked up to the school bus. Welcome back to the heater. So, what I found out as I was working with all of this, so I took this control harness right here. There are 4 wires. I ran it down and connected it with heat shrink butt splices to a trailer 4-flat connector and ran it through the side here. So you can see where it comes out there. I did this because this gives me the ability to put a water sealed cover on it just to kind of keep it protected when it's out here in the open. So what I found out, I did some conductivity testing on this one. So you might call it continuity testing, either way. What you do with this, you take a multimeter, and I've got this one set for evaluation of resistance, and I set it up here for diode testing because it gives me a nice tone when I've got a circuit. So if I touch these two together, we get a tone. So what makes that nice is I don't have to be looking at the display. Now if you're working with something that has a winding or a resistor that you know the resistance of, then obviously you want to pay attention to that display, and setting it to ohms is what you really want. But down here, I put my positive in this one here for amperage and resistance. Obviously you don't want to leave it in the voltage setup. There are internal fuses in here to keep you from doing any permanent damage, but just make sure you put your connections in the right place. And what I did, I put one probe on one of these little metal plugs in here, and then paid attention to what wire it was, and then did the same thing down here at my 4-flat connector, making sure that I was checking across the same wire. What I found out was this white wire here, please pay no attention to the fact that it's cut because I did that later. This white wire did not have conductivity going all the way through. So I tested the wire itself by poking a hole in the insulation right back up in here, and the wire was fine all the way through the butt splice. So my problem was where this wire connects to the plug. So I decided I wanted to keep this plug. I could have just wired around it if I wanted to. Now here's the other side of it. So obviously I'm not using all the wires that this is capable of. There are the 4 for a new plug. So I could have just cut these loose, cut those loose, and spliced them together with butt splices or plugs of my own. But I wanted to keep this weather pack just because it's a much better connection generally. So what I ended up doing, I just ordered a new harness from the company. Granted, apparently there isn't a Planar dealer here in the United States, so I ended up getting this one from Canada. But here's my new harness. So it's the same thing that I already had, and I haven't wired it into the 4-flat yet, but I just plugged this in directly to the new head unit that I have here. The other one got damaged. I think I showed you that in a previous portion of this video. So what we did, once I had this reconnected, I plugged in power down there and got everything connected here. What you ended up with, this one doesn't give you error codes. This one, these two lights flash. So they flash red to start, then they go to amber, and then they go to green. Once they flash green, then they usually shut down, indicating that the unit's ready to go. So this time, that happened. What was happening before, I think I showed you a picture of it, these were continuing to flash an error code. I think it was 13 flashes, indicating that there was no signal from the device. So, with this setup like this top one is for ventilation only, just the fan. This one down here is for heat. So the rheostat over here gives me a power control for the heater. So the further around this way I turn it, the hotter it gets. And the higher the heater runs, the further around this way I turn it, the less the heater runs and the cooler it generally stays. So what I'm going to do is set this about halfway through. Let's hit this button and see what happens. Here's our blower test. So we got signal from the unit. Fuel pump. A bit of exhaust coming out the diesel. Can hear the burner running in there. Okay, and we are firing up. So perfect. I'm going to let this cycle for just a second, just to make sure it's running properly. And we'll shut it down. I'm going to show you what I'm planning to do with it. So, like I've shown you before, we've got an input duct here on this side. There's an output on the other side. It looks just like it. I've got two of these 3-inch semi-insulated ducts. My plan is, I'm going to plug this into the back of the Grand Cherokee. I've got a power outlet back there. Okay. So back here we've got a power outlet, and I've got an extension cable that's 20 feet long, so that can get me part way across the side of the bus. So here's the plan. I'm going to plug it into this. This is connected to the auxiliary battery here, which has solar recharging, and I drive this every day, so I'll never have to worry about a battery problem. I'm going to set it right over here somewhere. And the plan is, I'm going to take some of this leftover plywood up here and cut a couple of pieces that I can insert into these upper windows here. So my plan, if I can do it, I'm going to try to spread out as far as I can between my intake and my output. But we'll do 2 windows, One of them will have the intake in it, hopefully up in here somewhere. The other one back here somewhere will have the output. And plan will be, that way it's recycling air inside the bus. I've got a couple of flange fittings that I can screw on there. So for my output I can just screw the flange onto the plywood and attach the duct to the outside. Then I've also got a 3-inch filter. So the idea being I can put that on the inside. Since I'll be working in there tearing this thing apart, I don't want to be drawing a whole bunch of dust and metal filings and other things through the heater. So I'll put the intake filter on it as well. And hopefully that should give me the ability to actually warm this bus up without running it. That's the idea anyway. Okay, so down there you can see the heater. So plan is to run one duct through this window here, and the other one I'm going to go over a couple windows and put it through here. So what I've got, this particular bus has these screws here holding in what I believe is just trim strips. So I'm going to take these out, measure for them, and basically cut a piece of plywood that's up to about here, goes down below the upper portion of the window, and goes far enough over on each side that I can use these screws as a clamp. So we'll just do 2 screws. I'm not too worried about the weather. We're not really supposed to have any major weather coming in anytime soon. And besides, I'll have this thing stripped down to bare metal here at some point. So let's make a couple of these. I need to measure out for how big to cut them, and then start working on drilling some holes. Obviously these don't have to be perfect. Just need something big enough to cover the window. So, just marking the position of those 2 screws. Now, get an idea of how far down I want it to be. So if I want to put this right about there, if I put those 5 inches down from the top, then I should be in the right place. Okay, hopefully you can see that. So what we have here, got my 2 mounting holes right here and right there. This one I'm going to use to run the control line through, so probably about a 1/2 inch hole, and then a 3-inch duct over here using a hole saw. So let's move this over to position and get it drilled. Holes. Here we've got a 3-inch hole saw. Set it on the low speed for this one. Go. Okay, take you back inside and let's give it a try. Okay, that ought to do the trick. Alright. So, I'm going to take these screws out, and then we'll see if we can't mount the thing. I'll drop the window down below. There we go. I don't need to go any further down than that, and that'll help keep the seal in under the bottom of the board here. Let's see if I can get you some video before it gets too dark to see. You can probably see better than I can out here. So here's the heater. This is the diesel heater. Got it set up on this table. I made a new pigtail to connect to the Anderson plug here, and it just goes down and connects to a deep cycle battery down here that I've got left over. And then I've got a trickle charger connected to it, just so I've got continuous power coming in for the fuel pump and igniter and all that stuff. Up here I've got a piece of wood that I screwed into the inside framework, more specifically into the trim on the inside. I'm not actually going through the body of the bus, but I've got a little plastic 3-inch flange pushed through there. It's bolted on. You can see one of the bolts. And then I've got this insulated, sort of insulated, it's foil lined duct going up here, coming down to the outflow for the air. Then over here is where I'm going to put the other one, so I can recirculate the air in the bus and hopefully improve the efficiency of the unit. So here's the piece of duct that's going to go over there. It's going to go from that board to the intake down here. We'll see if it's long enough. If it isn't, I've got some more I can use. So I was still having some trouble with my interface for the control. You can see here I've got the wire for the control coming out through the top. That's because when I had it connected down here through my 4-flat connector, for some reason it's now telling me again that there isn't any signal from the unit. So it's working fine like this. So I'll just have to leave it this way, and you know, that's closed. It's not going to cause any trouble. So I'll have to see what I can do about getting a better interface there so I can use it in the tent again. But for now, this will do. Okay. Yeah. So here's what we're doing with the other one. Here's the other board. This is the outside. What I've got is 2 of these little plastic flanges. I've already drilled the holes in here for it. So for this one, I have this intake filter. It's designed to fit over a 3-inch flange. That's why I've got 2 of those over there. So this is going to sit on the inside of the board up here. So my intake to the heater has a filter on it. So I can be as messy as far as sawdust and metal filings and things like that as I want to be, and it's not going to get through. So let me put these 2 on. What I'm going to do is put these back to back with the board in between and run bolts all the way through. Let me get that connected and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay, let me show you what we have here. So finally got the heater all hooked up. Again, because I was having some difficulty with the control interface, I've just got a different cable running out through the lid. But there's enough of an overhang here, it's not going to cause me any trouble. Down here, we've got power through this pigtail, going down to the battery here with a charger on it. Over here, this is my airflow out of the heater, up through this duct, going up into that piece of wood right there. There's a plastic flange screwed in that's holding it in place. Over here, we have our intake. I had to put them a little closer together than I really wanted to, just considering the fact that apparently that window over there is bigger than the other ones. Don't know why, and I should have seen that ahead of time, but it is. So, there's that. Coming down here, going down to the air intake. Let's turn this on. Turn this up a little bit. There we go. Fan self-check is starting. I'm going to set this down here. Because of the way I've got the controller hooked up at the moment, the wire's actually not long enough to get inside the bus, so I'm just going to leave it down here. It's supposed to snow tomorrow, so hopefully this will keep it out of the weather at least a little bit. Alright, self-check started. Let's go inside. So the reason I'm firing up the diesel heater tonight instead of the propane, I was trying to get these painted. The 2 solid ones are the delete panels for the rear upper flashers, and the 2 with the holes in them are going to be in place of the front upper flashers. They're going to have these LED spotlights in them. So obviously they won't be wired in just yet. These are just standard white light and just going to function as driving lights, but once they're in, they're in. So hopefully, over the course of the next few days, I'll be able to remove those upper lights that I just have painted over. The problem is, it's about 30 degrees out here. I don't want paint drying inside the house if I can avoid it, but I also need it warm enough to get this paint to dry properly. There we go. So here's the inside. Here's what we have. Blowers are working. So on this side, I drilled this hole in the board so I could push that control line through. Obviously I'm not going to be able to do that. So I might put some duct tape over that just to keep insects from getting through. Same thing on this side. I drilled this extra hole over here before I realized I don't really need it. So we'll see. So here's what we have. Right here, I've got this intake filter designed for like a side-by-side, but it happens to have a piece on the back of it that'll attach to a 3-inch flange. So I've got the filter drawing air into the heater, running down and through, and coming out over here. I might see if I can put some kind of a directional vent on here just because these are so close together. I didn't really want them like that, but at least it works. So hopefully I'll be able to warm things up a little bit in here and get the paint to dry. So I'll see you over the next horizon and during the next project. Enjoy.